was scrolling through X last week and I came across this exchange between two gamers talking about whether PvP or casualisation is what's killing modern games. And I sat there reading it and I thought, who's actually got a point here? Because one of them is saying games die because studios dumb them down for casuals, and once those casuals move on, there's not left for anyone. And other is saying, nah, it's PvP that killed games. Because most of your deaths come from players you never saw coming. So we're skill in that. And on surface, both of them sound like they've got something. But when you actually pull it apart properly, with real data and real examples, one of them is significantly more rate than other. And it's not even close. Alright, you lot. Today we're talking about something that's been quietly gutting this industry for years. And most people either don't notice or don't care until their favourite game is a ghost town with a shutdown announcement. Casualisation. And before you start typing in comments, oh, Scotty, just a sweaty tryhard who hates casuals. No, shut up. That's not what this is about. And anyone who's watched my channel for more than 5 minutes have seen, I'm no tryhard. Nah, this is about what happens when entire games and franchises get the spines ripped out to make sure little Timmy don't feel sad when he loses. And then little Timmy fucks off to play something else 3 weeks later anyway. And everyone who actually gave a shit about that game is left standing in an empty lobby wondering what happened. So let's start with Reave's argument. Because he's bang on, and I'll tell you for why. His point is simple. Modern games die because they're over-casualised. And once casuals move on to next casual-friendly title, previous game is far too dumbed down for core player base to stay engaged long-term. That's not sweaty opinion. That's a pattern you can observe across an entire generation of multiplayer titles if you're paying any sort of attention whatsoever. Studios chase mass market appeal. They sand every edge off a game to make onboarding as painless as possible. They remove complexity. They remove depth. They remove all that might make a new player feel like they need to actually learn something before they can compete. And what you're left with is a game that's easy to pick up and even easier to put down because there's no ceiling to chase. There's no mastery to pursue. There's no reason to come back tomorrow because you've already seen everything it has to offer in your first session. Casuals don't retain. They opt from new release to new release. They play for a few weeks, then move on. That's what makes them casual. And when they leave, you need a core player base sitting underneath them to keep your game alive. But if you've already gutted everything that'd keep those core players engaged, you've got fuck all. Just an empty server and a community manager posting exciting updates coming soon to a subreddit that stopped caring 4 months ago. Now, Chris, fair hearing, because I'm not here to be a prick about it, his point was that being more skilled in a game where most kills come from people you're not engaging don't seem all that skillful, and most games die because of PvP. And in context, this whole conversation is about Arc Raiders, an extraction shooter. So when he says killed by someone you weren't engaging, he's talking about that specific moment where you're mid-fight with an NPC. Some bloke flanks you from a bush, drops you, takes your loot, 20 minutes of progress, vanishes because there's someone you never even saw coming. And alright, that's fair enough. In that specific moment, calling it skillful is a stretch. I'll give him that. But here's where his argument falls apart so hard, it might as well have landed face first on concrete. Because Embark Studios, who made Arc Raiders, already tested his theory. Arc Raiders were originally designed as a pure PvE co-op game. Players going out into an open world, fighting Arc machines together. No player threat whatsoever. And after closed beta testing, they came out and said that player interest fell off after 1 or 2 sessions because there were no tension, no stakes, no keeping people on edge. So they bolted PvP onto it specifically because PvE alone couldn't sustain a player base. Chris wants PvP removed, and developers who actually tried that found out it kills engagement faster than any sweat lobby ever could. His argument mistakes broken PvP implementation with PvP as an entire concept, and those are two wildly different things. PvP itself when done properly with real stakes and real consequences, is what keeps people playing. And if you don't believe me, just look at Graveyard, because there's no shortage of tombstones to read. Let's start with Halo Infinite, because that one still hurts. Launched in 2021, core gunplay praised as some at best in franchise history. Free-to-play multiplayer, so there was zero barrier for entry. And within months it were hemorrhaging players so fast you could practically hear them leaving. Why? Because 343 Industries stripped it back to note at launch. No forge mode, no co-op campaign, bare bones playlist. When hardcore players discovered movement techniques that actually rate skill ceiling, 343 patched them out without whining. So, casuals had already left because there weren't enough content to hold the goldfish tier attention spans. And now core players were leaving because studio were actively removing skill expression to keep things accessible. Went from 200k concurrent to scraping around 10k in a matter of months. And that's a flagship franchise that was supposed to be untouchable. And Casualisation gutted it from inside. Marvel Rivals and nearly 480,000 concurrent on Steam at peak. Lost almost 80% of its player base within months, cause once novelty of playing as your favourite Marvel character wore off, there were no underneath to keep you coming back. Suicide Squad killed Justice League. Warner Bros. Spent God knows how many millions trying to turn a single-player franchise into a live service game nobody asked for. Casualised it to hell and back. And it flopped so hard it probably left a crater in the quarterly earnings report. Multiversus, dead. Phone Stars, dead. And here's a stat that should terrify every executive in this industry. Over half of 2025's live service launches lost more than 90% of the player bases before we even got to 2026. It's not a tiny blip, it's a fucking epidemic. And what pisses me off about all of this is it's not a developer problem. Developers actually do know better. You think some gameplay designer at 343 woke up one morning and thought, you know what Halo needs? Less skill expression and fewer game modes at launch. Nah, mate. It's fucking Boardroom and shareholders. Some suits who've never held a controller in his life looks at market analysis graph, sees that casual gamers represent a larger addressable market than core gamers, and decides that wider appeal equals more microtransaction revenue, more battle pass sales, more engagement metrics to show investors at next quarterly call. So then developers get told to make it more accessible, make it easier to pick up, remove all that might frustrate a new player. Because if we can get 10 million casuals to spend £5 each on a skin in the first week, who gives a fuck if they're gone by month 2? It's not incompetence causing it. It's corporate greed optimising for short-term revenue at expense of long-term player retention. Studios aren't building games to last anymore. Instead, they're building them to monetize fast and move on to the next project when player base inevitably collapses. And every single one of those dead games I listed earlier followed that exact playbook. Cast a wide net, catch as many casuals as possible, monetize them hard, and when they leave, which they always do, just blame market saturation or shifting player preferences in a press release and close studio. And that's why Embark Studios did something that almost nobody else had balls to do. They kept the game's teeth in. Arc Raiders launched October 2025. It's a PvPvE extraction shooter where you go topside, fight AI enemies, loot gear, try to extract it before other players or machines kill you and take everything you've earned. There's real risk, real consequence. If you die, you lose your shit. And that 20 minutes you spent gathering loot means fuck all. What's happened? Nearly over 15 million copies sold, and 7 months later it's averaging around 65,000 concurrent on Steam alone, with cross-platform peaks hitting 3.5 million. That game is thriving, while everything else around it is either dead or on life support. Arc Raiders is proof that when you give players real stakes, real tension, real consequence for failure, and a genuine skill ceiling to chase, they don't just play your game. They stay. They don't need a new battle pass every 6 weeks to keep them interested, because gameplay itself is worth coming back for. And that 3.2% player loss from peak that were reported, in an industry where losing 90% in your first year is considered normal, that's a fucking masterclass in retention. So Reave is right. Casualisation is killing games. It's been killing them for years, And until studios stop chasing casual audiences who are never going to stick around and start building games that respect core players enough to give them something worth mastering, that graveyard of live service slop is only going to get bigger. But hey, let me know what you lot think down below. And if you like this video, YouTube says you'll like this and next. So go check that out, and I'll see you there, you magnificent.